Hello and welcome to today's reflection. Today I'm going to be looking at Psalm 147. It's the psalm that is assigned to today for morning prayer. And I'm not going to read the whole of Psalm 147 to you, it's 12 verses long, but I'm just going to pick out some of the parts of the psalm that I think maybe are speaking to me today and perhaps maybe can speak to you also. It's a psalm of praise. It's a psalm that it talks about joy and talks about the importance of praising God. It is also a psalm that is quite honest. It's a psalm that reflects perhaps some of the feelings that we might have. It talks about healing the brokenhearted and binding up their wounds. It talks about a God who is mighty in power and whose wisdom is beyond all telling. The psalm also talks about a Lord that lifts up the poor and casts down the wicked, perhaps mirroring a little bit of the Magnificat there, that idea that God lifts up the poor. But it's the end of the psalm that I particularly like. It talks about a God who prepares the rain for the earth, who makes the green grass grow on the mountains, and who provides green plants to serve our needs. And just looking around my garden and seeing things that are bursting into life, some things that I've planted since I've moved here, other things that the previous owners planted and I didn't know existed because they're spring flowers and I wasn't here last spring. So it's just a joy to be able to see all these different things flourishing and coming up and starting with new life. And it kind of reflects back to the whole Easter story, that idea of death, but after death comes the resurrection and that joy which the resurrection brings, the salvation that it brings. The final line in the psalm is in verse 12. It says, "But the Lord delights in those who fear him, who put their trust in his steadfast love." And sometimes I think we need to just remind ourselves of that steadfast love. This is not love that comes and goes depending on a whim or depending on what's happening at the time. But this is steadfast love. This is ongoing. This is forever and for always. And we have a God who loves us steadfastly. And I think we, being created in his image, also need to try and love one another steadfastly, to have that deep joy within us that is able to bring something of the love of God to those around us, whether it is through one-to-one contact or whether it is through phone calls or emails or sending a letter or a note. It's a way that we can show something of God's love for us by showing our love for those around us. So just as we come to the end of today's reflection, I'd like us to be encouraged that we have a God who is a creator God, a God who wants to lift up the poor, a God who takes delight in our praise, and a God who loves. A God who wants us to love in return. Amen.